Hello. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the very basics in Illustrator. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's see, we'll go to Web Large, and I will change this to 1080 by 1080. 72 dots per inch, RGB default. Okay, and then I'm going to go Window, Workspace, and reset Essentials Classic so we can all be looking at the same thing. Okay, so here is Illustrator. Illustrator is a vector design program. What we're looking at here, this white square, is called the artboard. What is a vector? A vector is vector graphics are coordinate based, meaning like so I just drew some stuff. You don't even need to know what this is yet. Each of these points are recorded on the computer as a position, right? And then there's these other things called handles, tangency handles, that show like the influence of these positions on this curve here. But basically, the key thing to know is it's a coordinate system. And because it's coordinates and positions in space, what it lets you do, it's a mathematical curve, so you can keep kind of zooming in forever and it never gets pixelated. As opposed to raster-based or pixel-based work for a program. This is kind of an oversimplification, but something like Photoshop, where it's grids of pixels that you're playing with instead of these coordinate curves. All right, so that's, and I'll explain this more as the class goes on. But for now, we have our artboard, and we're going to, well, let's see, we have the workspace. Over here, we have our tools, our menus that have different functionality. If you have more than one thing that you're working on at once, there's tabs over here that you can use. So the very first tool I want to look at is the pencil tool, and it is hiding over here under the shaper tool. If I click on this, there's more tools under the hood. And I can also get to the pencil tool by clicking N. So what the pencil tool is a way of recording your gestures, recording your movement in Illustrator. So let me go pencil tool. Here it is. Okay, and so it basically takes your input on your mouse or your tablet and creates these points that another amazing thing about vectors is because they're math and coordinates, we can change them after the fact. So not only can we zoom in on them forever, but they're non-destructive. They're editable. We can keep going back, and then we can use them for a million other things too. But the pencil tool is used to record your movement, to gesture and draw and stuff. Now, I almost never use or never find myself using this tool because when you draw, it kind of it records your movement, but it places all these points kind of all over the place. And it doesn't give us, knowing that we can change these points and knowing that we can kind of change the influence of points on this curve, what happens more often than not is we want to be kind of really methodical about what points we place down and where we place them. Okay? So that brings me to this other tool. So this is about the third one down, and it's the pen tool. Okay? And so how it works is you click to put down a point, right? So if I just click around, it creates straight lines, clear connections between these points. But if I click and hold, it brings out these handles, right? So then, as I add more points, I can create curves. So I have this curve, right? If I want to, move it around or transform it, like scale it up or scale it proportionally. I hold down Shift, or make it taller or wider, whatever. I have this kind of transform box. I can even, if I go to the corner, you'll see the thing, my little cursor spin around. I can spin it around and all that sort of stuff. But if I want to actually go in and change these points, I go from the selection tool, to the direct select tool on the side. And the hotkey for that is A. So the hotkeys we got so far, we got N for the pencil tool, V for select, global select, and A for direct select. And so now I can go in and change my path. And I can change these curves here. And yeah, so the kind of two shapes that you need to be able to create to kind of get a handle on working with vector drawing tools, in this case in Illustrator, are a heart and a wave. All right, those are kind of the core shapes. If you can make those, you can make just about anything. Okay, so let's start with the heart. I'm going to put down a point, and I'm going to drag it out. Then at the kind of top of my heart, I'll put another one over here. And then it changes direction. And then I'm going to go over there. And if you notice, when Illustrator picks up picks up this other point in space, it says like, oh, you want to line that up, and it'll put a little pink guide. It'll also happen if I go over here, see? So that's pretty handy. And we'll look at that alignment as we progress, but I'm going to go over here, and I kind of like that they line up. And now I have half my heart. All right, and I can, change the proportions a little or whatever. But this looks really dodgy, right? Over here, it's like a little kind of bendy, and then there's like this kind of smooth curve over here, but then it gets kind of abrupt. So I need to adjust this stroke now that I've put down my points. So to do that, I hit A, go to my direct select, click on the path, and now I can move things around. Right? And I can adjust my handles. The longer the handle, the smoother it becomes. Okay. Other good rules of thumb is whenever we're drawing a shape or a letter form and we're using vector tools, you tend, and this is also true when setting animation curves, when we look at that later, you tend to want to put your points at the apex of curves, at the changes of directions. And then that way, you have total control over the proportion of something. And then if you make your handles kind of at these 90-degree angles, and that's if there's even like an invisible triangle that's kind of happening here, right? That gives you total control over exactly how the curve is, right? So by positioning it this way, I can place, the profile exactly how I want. And then by having these curves on these 90 degrees, I can also totally control that, right? Which is awesome. Okay, so now that I have half my heart, I could grab it and make a copy and flip it over. So there's a number of different ways to make a copy of your shapes and curves in Illustrator. The first one is just to copy, to copy and paste. All right, so now I got another one. Another way to do it, if I want to copy it, so I'm going to copy again and paste it in exactly the same spot, is hit Command F. So now there's another copy right on top, but it's right on top. And, I could copy it, I can paste it, I can go to Reflect, And now it's pacing the other way, and then I can use my guides to do it like this. But there's actually a better way. Because this is a mathematical thing, and these are paths, I can use Illustrator's tools to help me kind of automate things. Okay, so with half the heart selected, I'm going to go to Effect, Transform, Distort and Transform, Transform. I'm going to make sure Preview is put on. I'm going to move, this is our, where the effect happens based on this bounding box. See how there's these 1, 2, 3, 8 points, and they correspond to these points over here. So I'm going to move it to this bottom corner. I'm going to make one copy and reflect it in the X. And then hit OK. And so now, when I go on one side, it will update the other side for me, which is really cool because it keeps that symmetry, which we like, and it saves me a bunch of work, right? So let's say that is our heart. Right now it has a black outline and a white fill. I can go over here and flip it if I like. I can hit D, which is the default, which is a black outline and a white fill. And yeah. Okay, so then if that's the heart, I'll make this a little smaller. We'll get into the transform tool a little more later because there's more to it than that, but it's just the fundamentals here. Let's do the wave. Okay, so I'll click a point and drag it out, and I'll click a point and drag it out, and then another one, and another one, and another one, maybe at the top of the wave. Let's undo that. Do it over here. Like that. Okay. So right now, this is interesting. I have a fill of black and no stroke, and it's making this really awful looking thing. Okay, and the reason for that is as soon as you put a fill on an object, Illustrator or any software, right, is trying to make a shape, and a shape, unlike a line, is enclosed, right? That's the difference between a shape and a line. So if I want to just keep it a line and not fill it, I go Shift X like so, or I just go over here like that. Okay. Okay, so here's my wave. Once again, if I hit the direct select tool A, I can adjust these points. I can make these curves a little smoother. I can play with these little triangles here. And so on and so forth. But what about here? What if I want to have a nice, crisp, like shark fin shape? How do I do it? If I move this around, it's still smooth, right? So this is an instance where we want to break our tangencies. Okay, so if I go and I hold down, if I go P, that goes to the pen tool. And see, with my pen tool here, I can actually do other stuff, right? I can add points to my path. I can delete points from my path. And if I hold Alt on my pen tool, I can break the tangencies. Okay, and once they're broken, they kind of stay that way, where they behave that way. Another way to break tangencies is when you have your handle, if you go like this, if you hold down Alt, it lets you break it. Okay, and so now, let's see here. Let's hit V, and we'll make the shape a little nicer. bottom of the wave is like this. We have made our waveform. And while we're at it, over here in Appearance, we can make the stroke a little thicker. We can click on the stroke, and there's all these options. Maybe we'll have a nice round end. And we have made our two kind of key shapes that basically, if you can make these, you can make just about anything you need to. I mean, you still gotta you still gotta draw it, but you got the technical skills to make it happen. All right.